I'm Maggie. I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist with degrees in psychology, theology, and marriage and family therapy, a national certification in dialectical behavioral therapy, and a national certification in integrative mental health. In this video, I'm not looking to diagnose anyone. I'm only willing to offer insight into situations like these. Hello, hello. All right, so our mothers, I'm very tall today. Our mothers influence our cognitive, our emotional, and our social development. And unhealthy mothering leads to long-term challenges. So before we get into it, let's say hello to some people in the live. Adric is here. He is first. That means it's going to be a good show, right? Right? Because he's there. He also gave the hashtag for Pivot Point Wednesday, which is what we're doing. Inspired Truth is second. Thank you, Adric and Inspired Truth, for being here. Nina is here coming in third. She says hi with the peace sign, my favorite auntie. Scorpion Black is here. What's new with you? Leon is here. He says, I got mama issues. She always thinks she's right, and I have to talk to her like I'm her dad. Literally, I use my grandfather's voice. Oh boy. So we're going to get into it. Adric says, let's hear it for the dancing Maggies. Yay. Adrian is here. He says, let's go. And peace to the live tribe, the best live tribe on YouTube. That's you guys. Leon says, I get on my mom's nerves. Every time she annoys me, I call the Jehovah's Witnesses and open the door for them when I'm at her house. I've done this since I was 18. Oh, Leon says, Maggie is on beat. I don't know what that means. Oh, Snowman is here. Snowman needed to check in. Still dealing with the death of my mom, me as well, and all of her impacts after my dad's death. Oh, goodness. I'm so sorry. Thank you for being here, Snowman. Cynical Optimist is here. Peace to you as well. All right, let's get going. Okay, so I want to preface this with, I'm not talking about the normal everyday, I'm a parent and I screwed up kind of stuff. My collar is really weird. I don't know what it's doing. Okay. Because parents are human beings. And for those of us who are parents, you're going to screw up. Humans, you know? And we all got to give our kids fodder to tell their therapist later in life, right? But I'm talking about some stuff where parents are screwing up big time. And, we as adults can look at what our mom has done and mistakes she's made and some really heinous stuff. And as an adult, we can look at mom and say, okay, she was like this because of this. Her mom was like this, or her dad was like this, or she lived through this, or she had to deal with this, or these things happened. We can see that as an adult. But the thing is when these things happened, we were children. And children don't have the cognitive capacity to do that. And since we all have an inner child, and a lot of what happens to us as children affects us later, we're going to try to keep some things separate. Okay? We're going to listen to the show as our child self, and we're going to separate what we can rationalize about mom later in life. And we're going to think more about what happened to us as children and think about it in that way. We're not demeaning or dogging on mom or downgrading mom or any of those kind of things. We're just talking about the stuff she did. Okay. So we can kind of keep those things separate if need be. But if you're at the stage of your healing journey where you're angry with mom as you're processing, that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that. Feeling some anger later about things that happened is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's all part of processing. Hi, Cutting Up with the Joneses. Thank you for being here. So, what are mommy issues, right? So, these are psychological and emotional challenges that are a direct result of the relationship with the mother. Okay. So, usually these challenges happen because of unmet needs, neglect, or even overprotection, being enmeshed, dysfunctional dynamics that happened. Okay. So these affect adult behaviors, relationships, and self esteem. So we got to think about those are usually the domains where they come out. The way we behave in response to other people, usually, our relationships, and how we feel about ourselves. Because our mother is actually the first one to set the stage for that. Father comes in a little bit later during different developmental periods, and he is very necessary as well. So let's talk about expectations of moms. Okay. So in ancient societies, women were valued as the child bearer, the bringing forth of this new life. Like she ushered it into the world, right? And mom, the mothers were the nurturers. The role was family survival and lineage, right? So her job was to bring the life into the world and keep it alive until it can take care of itself. Okay. So during the medieval era, we kind of moved into these expectations that motherhood was a religious duty. Okay. Women were expected to have children and raise their children with the prevailing religious indoctrination. So she became this teacher of the religious dogma. So that became an expectation of mother. Um, and that's a bit more European than in other areas. During the Industrial Revolution, there was something called the cult of domesticity that happened during this Industrial Revolution. So, this is where we began to idealize homemaking mothers, making a home. This was the first time. Until then, it was not mother's responsibility to be the homemaker, right? So during this time, this cult of domesticity, we idealized homemaking mothers, and we needed mother. We expected her to provide emotional support at home. So before this was not an expectation to be emotionally supportive, right? We keep them alive, then we teach them religion, and now we have to provide emotional support and make the home, right? And it wasn't just to the children, it was to children and husband to be the emotional support. Okay. Then we move into the early 20th century. And this is where scientific motherhood started, right? This is where parents started accepting and adopting expert advice. So, for those of you of a certain age bracket, or for me listening to my parents, think about Dr. Spock, right? So, the scientific motherhood, there were all of these childhood experts, right? Child developmental experts, and they would give advice on child rearing. And it was mothers that were supposed to take this advice because they started to be seen as solely responsible for a child's psychological well-being, good or bad. This is where you'll see the advent of something called schizophrenogenic mothers, where the prevailing thought on schizophrenia, when psychologists started to look at schizophrenia, prior to that, it was thought that they were possessed by demons. So when psychology started looking at schizophrenia, they immediately thought it was caused by mother somehow. And so these people who were schizophrenic would be put into an insane asylum, and so would their mother. And she would be diagnosed with schizophrenic mother. We now know it's genetic. It's genetic with a triggering event. So, how unfortunate for those women, right? Especially if they had other children. Okay. So, then the Adrix says original or present Spock. This just happened to be a doctor whose last name was Spock. It had nothing to do with like the Star Trek, that Spock. um, it was just a doctor whose name was Spock. Leon said, sometimes I wish my mother helped me with my homework a little bit more. She would lean on my stepdad more. I wanted her to help me until she gave up and just gave me the right answers. I have that problem too. I get frustrated with homework sometimes. Yeah. Adrian says, we're definitely seeing remnants of the role of mothers teaching and protecting dogma. Peace to moms for liberty. Yeah. I mean, you can go back to desegregation and look how those moms were in making sure the indoctrination happened, making sure the dogma was there, and becoming attack dogs in their dysfunctional, misguided, and racist quest to protect their children. So, post World War II era, mothers were expected to be homemakers and the entirety of the moral anchor of the home. It was her job to keep her children on track with religion, morality, psychology, everything. She was responsible for how they turned out, and to also assist her husband in staying on the right moral train. Okay. Then in the 1960s to the 1980s, this is where the feminist movement happened. So the feminist movement challenged those traditional roles that not each and every single woman needs to be married and have children. Some are not nurturers, some will not be great mothers, some would not be great wives, some don't want to do that, some want to do other things, right? And it wasn't just if you're born with a vagina, you have one track and this is what you do, right? So um it began to encourage women to be mother and have a career, or not be a mother at all, right? In fact, there was this leaning kind of heavily on not being a mom at all, but even if you're going to be, every woman needs to have a career. And the interesting thing was that the option to be a stay-at-home mom was kind of seen as anti-feminist or anti-woman. And we've had backlash from that, honestly, because then when women wanted to exercise their choice to make those decisions and wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, they were automatically labeled as like uber conservative or like trad wives, you know? Leon says silent generation and boomer women were a different breed of women. Yeah. Inspired Truth says women go over homework. I always thought it was a dad thing. Oh, yeah, no, that's always been a me thing, the homework. Rocky, hi, thanks for being there. Says, I have a vivid memory of my circumcision. That is terrible. I am so sorry. My mother was there holding my right leg down. Don't know where my father was, probably at work, but that's one of my, if not the earliest memory of my mother. That's like within days of birth, unless you're Jewish, then it's within months. Rocky says, I think it contributes to my misogyny. Sorry for the TMI. I mean, that would contribute to some definite challenges later for sure. Leon says, I believe that all women and men were never meant to have children. I wish the framework or belief still centered around them being in the community. Am I getting that right? I believe that all women and men were never meant to have children. Oh, Rocky says he was born premature and it was when I was 3. Yeah, you would definitely have memories from that time for sure. Yeah. Okay, so then we get into the 21st century. So now, women are expected to be a nurturing, present mother and a high rising career oriented worker while maintaining personal health and happiness and be a good wife. Do it all, right? Do it all. But the thing is, there's so many different factions of what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a mother, all these different things from your religion to your politics to your family of origin. Everybody's got an opinion on what it means in this day and age, and you're not going to please everybody. So, do what you feel is best for you and your future family, whatever that looks like. Okay. But the expectations are generally based on whatever the prevailing power structure is, right? And the power structure will do what works best to maintain the power and keep resources moving upward. And that is not a conspiracy theory type thing. That is actually part of sociology. So the expectations of mothering, of fathering, of a worker, those kind of archetypal kind of things, the prevailing trends and thoughts come from the prevailing power structure. So that is definitely part of it. Okay, so we can all didn't mean to open that. I opened something up on my screen. Sorry, guys. We can all think of examples of terrible moms who messed up their kids, right? But here's some fun examples. BGS says now they're indoctrinated in school by the women, right? Because it's still a woman's job to indoctrinate the children. So, excuse me. That first one there is Mary Ball Washington. That's George Washington's mother. And I'm just going to say he was an awful person. If you don't understand why he was an awful person, put it in the chat and I'll tell you. But she was controlling and emotionally abusive, and she financially abused her son from his childhood on. She was financially dependent upon her son, George, and was manipulative, controlling, emotionally abusive, just terrible, terrible person. Rocky says, I vented about on Facebook once and got made fun of and laughed at by women, including my sister and cousins. Okay, I'm done talking for now. That's terrible. Rocky, I'm so sorry. I can't imagine being a 3-year-old and remembering such an atrocious thing happening to you. Also, I'm a bit anti-circumcision. So, that's another place where I'm coming from. I don't hate people who have had it done or parents who decide to do it. I personally am anti-circumcision for those kind of reasons. Another terrible mom, Lavana Golden, who's Tanya Harding's mother. She's the one with the furish coat on and the big glasses and the poofy hair. Wait, am I talking about myself? No, it's the lady. It's the lady there. So there was a documentary done on Tanya Harding, and she was physically abusive, emotionally abusive, and she was also kind of grifting her daughter, to be the best figure skater so that she could revel in the glory of this great person and make money and all this kind of stuff. Right. Hi, Spain Man. He's just getting here. Greetings to you as well. Hi, Jake Cleveland Green. Thank you for being here. So that's Lavana Golden. She's a terrible mom. And then I had to put in Norma Bates from the movie Psycho. That's what's in the middle. If you guys haven't seen the movie Psycho, it's referenced a lot. It's where the shower curtain goes back and he's got the knife, right? Like that's Norman Bates, and it all has to do with mother, this psycho relationship with this psycho mother. And by the way, the movie is called Psycho. So, terrible mother. And then another mother, Joan Crawford. And so there was a movie done about her mothering called Mommy Dearest. She was controlling, manipulative, physically and emotionally, and possibly sexually abusive to her two adopted children, a boy and a girl. She had an adopted little girl named Christy, and this movie was shown from Christy's point of view. And she was so terrible that there's just this iconic scene where I don't remember exactly why she got into Christy's closet looking at the dresses or whatever, because Christy always had to be perfect because Joan Crawford was an actress. And so everything had to be perfect. And one of the dresses was on a wire hanger. So back in the day, when the dresses would come from the dry cleaner, or your clothes would come from the dry cleaner, they'd always be on metal hangers. And you would move them to your cloth hangers. And this dress was on a metal hanger, and she loses her mind. No metal, no wire hangers. And she beats the crap out of Christy for her dress being still on the hanger from the dry cleaner. Yes. Cutting up the Joneses knows what I'm talking about. Oh my gosh, I was missing some comments. Okay. So Jay Cleveland is here because BGS referred him. Great. Thank you for being here. Adrian says, interesting that it would be funny in a world where we champion being anti-female genitalia mutilation as if circumcising isn't the same thing. That's why I'm anti. And we do this to babies who are not, I'm going to soapbox for a second, who are not able to defend themselves and make those kind of decisions. It's based on a religious, specifically Jewish, a religious activity. And they used to try to say it was cleaner and it would keep you from having infections and all this kind of thing. And then they found out that's actually not true. Men's genitalia is perfectly acceptable, healthy, and perfect in its original state. This is how humans have been for hundreds of thousands of years, and this is what the penis looked like, and there's no reason to mutilate it. So, okay, I'm off my soapbox. Again, I don't judge people for having it done anymore in this day and age. I will hear from men that because they were circumcised and everybody was circumcised, they don't know how to teach a boy to manage his uncircumcised penis, and also he wants his son penis to look like his penis. And so it's a family decision. It's a father's decision. You guys don't think I'm judging you or saying you're terrible for these things. We are one of the few countries left in the world that still does it, by the way, if not the only one left. In Israel, I'm sure they do it there, but I'm just hoping at some point it kind of goes out of fashion. It goes out of favor. Let's see. Cutting Up with the Joneses says, my mom liked to quote Mommy Dearest. Aw. Spainman says he's known an adult or two that did it late. And I'm like, no way. Jay Cleveland says The Secret Garden. I don't remember that show. Rocky says, so wait, is Tanya Harding's mom's fault that Nancy Kerrigan got her leg clubbed? No. It's Tanya Harding's fault. But the mom has some responsibility in who her daughter turned out to be. But no, Tanya Harding owns responsibility for what she did to Nancy Kerrigan. Absolutely, positively, 100%. Rocky knew what I was talking about. Yeah. So did Will, Cutting Up with the Joneses. He knew what I was talking about. So what makes a problematic mom, though? Like, we can talk about these terrible moms, and it's kind of We can poke fun at moms a little bit, you know what I mean? Like these terrible moms. There was a couple real ones, well, no, three real ones and a fictional, right? But what what makes a problematic mom? Not the I'm human and I make mistakes kind of mom that later my kid says, when you did this, it really, really bugged me and it caused me problems for a little bit. That gives us the opportunity to own our mess, to take accountability. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. Maybe explain what happened, and reassure your child that you love them. You don't have ill will towards them. You want the best for them, and fix that issue. Those are normal mom kind of things. And it's happened with me, and that's what you do, because sometimes everybody says things in the moment or does things in the moment. Maybe we got too angry or said something without thinking, and we don't realize that we created these challenges. So we can own that, right? So what makes a problematic mom? Number one is neglect. That is a big one, and I do want to say neglect in this frame means like not attending to basic needs, like being gone. Okay. Um, Now, again, like I said, we can think with our adult brains and know that mom was gone because she worked three jobs, right? Or two jobs and left us home way too young, way too early. And so we were neglected. But our child self doesn't understand that because children need their basic needs met and they need physical proximity. A basic need of a child is actually physical affection and proximity. So, um, another one is control and manipulation. So we can thank Joan Crawford, right? And Mary Ball Washington, the control and manipulation. Abuse is always going to be in there: physical, psychological, sexual. And sexual abuse can range from introducing you to topics that is too early, exposing you to things that you shouldn't be exposed to, all the way to actual sexual abuse. Then we have favoritism and comparison, which always leads to degrading. So having a favorite child or a favorite other thing that you would rather do, comparing to that, or just general degrading you because you're not as good as X, Y, and Z. That's the unsaid part. If you're a this and that, it's because something that's not that exists. Okay. Um, Leon says, my grandmother and the matriarchs used to say, oh, an uncut man smells like bad cottage cheese. So I just always thought about hygiene. Um, that's actually not true. I will say I don't know what men they were around, but just like any genitalia that has flaps, because at that point you kind of got a flap that goes over the top. Any genitalia that has flaps, if you don't keep it clean, and you expose it to things that it shouldn't be exposed to, or some other things, you can get yeast infections, and that can smell like bad cheese. So maybe that's what they were talking about, but it's just a cleanliness. You have to wash. Um, Spain Man says, in my adult life, my mom would often apologize for things she realized she did wrong when I was a kid, even stuff I didn't even blame her for. I really appreciated that. Yeah. Yeah. Because the thing is, we're human too. And then if I take accountability for the crap I do wrong, then I teach my kids to take accountability for the crap they do wrong. And that's just better, right? That if you do something wrong, take accountability. That's how we do. Okay, so we did degrading. Then we have coldness and withdraw, just not emotionally present, withdrawing from you, separating yourself or separating herself from you, forcing you to spend a lot of time alone, away from that emotional support, the proximity, the affection, kind of just cold. Um, Addiction and instability in the home. So that instability of never knowing when the other shoe's going to drop, what's going to happen, what's it going to be like when I come home? Um, are there, if it's addiction, what is mom's state of mind at any given time? What kind of mood is she in? Who is she? Is she passed out? Um, do I need to call 911? Is it that bad? Who is in and out of my house? That goes along with instability and addiction. Instability can go with mom has men in and out of the house, has random people in and out of the house. There's a lot of fearing for your safety and the safety of others at too young of an age when that kind of thing happens. Um, and then the last one is vicarious living. And so that's kind of like Tanya Harding's mom. But we see this a lot even nowadays where the mom takes credit for her child's accomplishments to the point of the child only earns love when they are excelling at whatever it is. So, we have the football moms, the basketball moms, the stage moms, the where mom is living vicariously through the child, and the child cannot fail at all. Has to be the best, the most perfect. And when they make it, they have to reward mom, right? That's when mom gets the house. What are you going to do with your money? I'm buying mom a house, right? I'm buying mom a car. I'm taking mom to Disneyland, right? So mom almost becomes a god, right? Anything good in the child's life is because of mom, and anything bad is their fault. Okay. J. Cleveland Green the second says, my mom never apologized. She always said there wasn't a manual or a book on how to raise kids. Exactly. So I have tons to apologize for. Right. Like, and I would do it in vivo too, or raise my voice for something, did not show emotional control. Maybe I had a bad day. Somebody at work pissed me off or something else happened, although I didn't work when they were little. Um, you know, then I'm sorry. I should not have raised my voice, but this is what's going on. And da 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 da. Not to say that there's not a time to raise your voice. Sometimes you have to be very firm and raise your voice. Okay. Jay Cleveland said she was also a hoarder. Yeah. Cynical Optimist says, I have fragmented memories of my biological mother. She was very nurturing and affectionate, taught us how to forage wild foods, but she wasn't very present. Yeah. Yeah. I love that she was nurturing and affectionate, and I absolutely adore that she taught you how to forage wild food. That's amazing. I'm sorry that she wasn't very present. Okay. So let's talk about the mother archetype, because I'm going to talk about the mother archetype, because regardless of what the powers that be tell us how a mother is supposed to be or what a mother is supposed to be, we can always go back to the mother archetype, right? So whether you're looking at it archetypal in philosophy, archetypal in religion, archetypal in psychology, in metaphysics, however you want to do it, the mother archetype is present in all of those things. So, and an archetype is like the base model, right? Like, this is what we all sort of just instinctively or unconsciously know mother to be. So the mother archetype, um, from prehistoric to modern times, right? And so even though it's in all these domains, it also exists from prehistory all the way through. The archetype appears in myths, ancient religions, psychology, literature, and it's a cornerstone in understanding human relationship. Mother is always somehow tied to our relationships to other people. Okay. So the mother archetype represents the universal concept of nurturing, creation, and motherly protection. Okay. It symbolizes life-giving power, unconditional love, and wisdom. So this is what the archetype has always been. I'm going to say it again. Nurturing, creation, motherly protection, life-giving power, unconditional love, and wisdom. Those are the things that denote the mother, okay? So this is what we unconsciously and instinctively believe mother to be, okay? Leon says, my mother apologizes. I'm lucky to have had a great grandmother and father that always told me they were never finished with being a parent. It allowed me to understand when they passed. Oh, when I passed the age of 18. Oh, yeah. My children are always my children. I refrain from calling them my babies. I probably shouldn't call them children, my progeny, my offspring. I'm not sure. Because I don't want to infantilize them. And I don't think people are intentionally doing that, but I'm always analyzing things. So I want them to feel strong and adult and mature and capable. However, there are times when my kids are going through it, I will say, you're always my baby. You can always come to me. You always, always can talk to me. You can always set that at my doorstep and I will help you to carry that load. I don't care how old you are, you know? Okay. So what goes along with the mother are some characteristics, right? So she nurtures, which means she provides care, warmth, and sustenance. That's what nurturing is. So your basic needs, warmth, which is, affection, both emotional and physical, and cares for you, right? Unconditional love means accepting and supporting regardless of the circumstances. I accept you and I support you regardless of whatever the circumstances are. Unconditional love does not mean I agree with everything you do. Right? I can wholeheartedly disagree with something you did. I can be disappointed in your behavior, right? But you as a person, I accept you and support you regardless of whatever circumstances are going on. Okay. That's what unconditional love means. And that's something that um, every archetype of woman, which I'll go into on the femininity show. I hope you guys can all be there because I'm going to go over masculinity and a whole bunch of stuff. But the archetype of woman, unconditional love is always tied into that, this acceptance and support regardless of circumstances. It doesn't mean she agrees or won't argue or won't tell you that you're wrong. Right? But it's accepting and supporting you, accepting and supporting the child. Okay. Creativity, bringing ideas and projects to life. That's her section of creativity. So an idea is there, brings it to life. A project is there, brings it to life. The seed and the egg join, brings it to life. She ushers in what the man and the woman made together. Okay. The motherly protection. So she is the guardian and the protector of her dependents, her charges. She is the guardian to them, right? So that protection, guardian is the better word for that. Okay. Um, Patience and steady guidance is always part of that. So guardian, guide, that kind of stuff, which that guide falls into the divine feminine aspects. Empathy. So she gives understanding and responding to the emotional needs of other people, right? She provides empathy, wisdom. Her guidance is based in experience, knowledge, and intuition, putting all of those things together to provide motherly wisdom and sacrifices. Because she does care for those who cannot care for themselves, she will prioritize others' needs at times selflessly. So, this is the archetype of the mother. So, if the mother archetype, these are all these positive things, that also means that she has a shadow side. So, a shadow, for anyone who may not have heard of this before, is that everything exists in duality. What is up goes down, what is in goes out, what starts stops. We live in a world of duality, and the sun will shine on one side, and the other side will be in the shadow. And shadow exists in multiple different thoughts. We've gone over Jungian psychology, which talked about the shadow, who was kind of an animated part of your inner consciousness that is sort of like it's not a villain, but he's like an anti hero. He's like Killmonger to the Black Panther. Okay. Um, the shadow is where the trauma lies. Okay. So, the shadow side of the mother is being overprotective and smothering. She's totally enmeshed with her kids. They can't move. This is tiger mom. What it does is it completely prevents independence. So, mother is our Lord and Savior. A mother can do no wrong. This is what we start thinking of a mother who is overprotective and smothering. Okay. And then we will place mother above our wife, our girlfriend, our daughters, right? Because she is the everything. Control is part of the shadow side. So manipulation, guilt, passive aggressiveness, right? And it's all disguised and packaged to you as love, right? I'm doing this because I love you. I'm manipulating you because XYZ reasons, right? I'm guilt tripping you. I'm being passive aggressive, all right? Because I love you and I'm the mother. Okay. And then we have neglect. So, not meeting those emotional and physical needs, right? That's on the shadow side of the mother. Dependency. So, this is where the mother will create relationships to make people dependent on them. This is where mother starts becoming a martyr. Like, I've sacrificed everything for you. You have to give to me, or you can't do anything without me. You wouldn't know how to do this without me. And again, that also prevents independence, right? Then we have self-abandonment on the shadow side of the mother. So this is where she'll neglect herself or her own needs for others. She will sacrifice herself on other people's altars. This is not necessarily martyrdom because she may not ever say anything. But then, she just sort of emotionally fades away because she never takes care of herself ever. Um, and then the last part of the shadow is called devouring. And this can happen with the feminine archetype. This devouring is consuming the energy of other people to sustain themselves, which sounds a little bit woo woo. But what it means is these women who are these mothers who are so needy, so exhausting, that you are so tired after dealing with them because they're so needy. This is called devouring. So this is eating the energy, right? Cynical says this is how husbands are created. Yeah. Um, Several of those actually. The sun husbands are where a woman becomes so emotionally dependent upon her son, she puts him in an adult place, like saying, "You're the man of the house." The man of the house is the husband. That's the husband role, right? In this theory, which came from Dr. T. Hassan Johnson, and she will place him in a more adult place and then rely on him emotionally like a man. And so then he's in sort of this weird son husband role, which has psychological effects, right? Of course it would. um Jay Cleveland said, she used to leave me with my sisters and they thought they were my mom. It was weird. Yeah, and that can happen too. We will put little girls in charge of all the children in a parental role, which it can happen to boys, yes, but it happens a lot with girls. Um, it's more universal with girls. Um, and put them in a parenting position before they're ready. And a lot of times when that happens, unfortunately, these little girls are not psychologically ready to be in that parenting role, and they will become physically abusive because they don't have the cognitive capacity to problem solve and parent. Inspired Truth says vamps. Yes, the succubi. This is the succubi. Yeah, the energy vampires. Rocky says, yeah, sun husbands. Yep. Yep. Okay, so that is the shadow side of the mother. Okay, so now we understand the things, right? These behaviors, these particular things that can be happening that mother can be exhibiting. Okay, so how does it manifest in an adult? What happens to adults who deal with, have dealt with that as a child. Now, before I get into it, I want to say something I say a lot. It is not your fault that bad things happen to you as a child, especially, but even as an adult, it is not your fault. But the unfortunate part of other people doing bad stuff to us or making heinous mistakes on us is that it's now our responsibility to attend to it. That's the bad part. Now, if you dealt with these things as a child from the mother, and we go through these things and you see, oh man, yeah, I struggle with that. Yeah, I have some challenges here and there. You can start to understand the tie to the mother, and you can process that and move beyond it. And then your responsibility in it is done. Again, it's not your fault. It's just unfortunately when the mother has done these things to us, we now have the responsibility of dealing with it. Yeah. Okay. So, number 1 is abandonment issues. Okay. Now, and I'm not saying that only mother can cause abandonment issues, father can as well. We're not talking about dad right now. So, with mother, the abandonment issues come from physical absence, but also emotional unavailability. So, if mother was cold, if she was withdrawn, if she was unstable, then even though she was there in the house, we can still have abandonment issues. So, abandonment issues are an intense fear of rejection or of being left behind, clingy behavior or needing constant reassurance, real difficulty trusting. And it can be one, any, or all of these descriptors that I'm giving you for abandonment issues. Okay. They all come from different things. Extreme difficulty ending relationships or moving on from relationships, overreacting to perceived signs of disinterest or withdrawal, like, oh, I think that person might not want to be around me right now, and it's the overreaction. Okay, so that's abandonment issues is the first one. Second one is commitment issues. So this is caused by a mother. Actually, pause for a second because I forgot to say this part. For those of you that see me looking down, I always keep notes to stay on track because I will have squirrel moments, go on soapboxes, talk about other things if I don't stay on track. So I always have notes for myself. So when you see me looking down, a lot of times it's me staying on track and making sure I'm saying all the things. So I want you to understand that if you see that. And while I'm paused, Leon says, yeah, my mom used to gaslight me by talking about my dad mad wild. Then I turned 25 and something clicked. At that very moment, I said, Mom, you picked him. And I started laughing at her. So she attempted to find other ways to get me mad. Oh, man. Yeah, it's a valid point. It's a valid point, right? The thing with that's part of that degrading and comparison piece that I talked about. And I'm not saying you specifically, but I'm using that as an example, that kind of talk. When When mother degrades the father to the son, well, to either child, but specifically to the son, she tells him half of you isn't worthy. Half of you is bad. The part of you that is father is is whatever it is I'm saying about him. And that is part of that degrading and comparison that then causes later challenges. It can be considered abusive. Okay, so the second one is commitment issues. So this is caused by mother who was inconsistent, unreliable, addicted, or overly critical. Okay. Um, so with commitment issues from this is avoidance of deep connections for fear of being hurt, fear of being vulnerable, trouble maintaining long-term relationships, alternatively idealizing or devaluing the person that you're with. Like one day you think they hung the moon, and the next day they're just like everybody else. Feeling trapped by being in a close relationship. Any one or all of those are commitment issues. Yeah, Leon said, yep. Okay, then the next one is over-dependence. So that one is the one that's caused by overprotective or thoroughly enmeshed mother, right? It just completely discourages independence, right? So this person who has the overdependency issues relies on others for decision making. They can't make a decision without getting other people's opinions. Um, or they rely on other people for emotion regulation and emotional support. They need somebody else to tell them how to feel. They struggle to function autonomously in adulthood. They really need the support of other people because they're not sure if they're doing it right. They seek their mom's approval all the time, well into adulthood. And they avoid any and all responsibility. So any one or all of those is an overdependence. Rocky, don't get me started on squirrels. I'm going to have a squirrel moment. And then we have codependency. So we had overdependency. Now we have overdependence. Now we have codependency. This is caused when the mother leans on her child for care or emotional support. So she's having the child do the emotional labor or take care of her. Okay. Now, the unfortunate part is this can happen if mother is very sickly as well, because children then have to take care of mother. But if mother leans on child for care and emotional support, then the way that comes out is the adult feels responsible for other people's problems. If something bad happens to you, then I'm apologizing for it. Okay. Overvaluing their place in the relationship, kind of the without me, they'll fail, or without me, they'll use drugs again, or without me, they'll lose their job. That's that overvaluing my place in this relationship. They neglect their personal needs to people please other people. They will stay in unhealthy or unfulfilling or even abusive relationships too long. They'll have trouble establishing and or maintaining their boundaries in codependency. So any one or all of those is codependency. Then we have mental health issues, right? So this can be caused by a mother with mental illness, addiction, or unresolved trauma. So, i.e., that instability portion, right? So, with that, we get anxiety and hypervigilance. That hypervigilance is head on a swivel, is the best way to say that. The always looking out, always watchful, always knowing what's going on, who's doing what, where everybody is. That's hypervigilance. And a lot of times it can go with anxiety when we've had an unstable mother. Then we have depression and feelings of worthlessness, being unworthy. That especially goes with children of people with addiction, because there's this unconscious, subconscious, or you could have thought it, um, thought of if mother loved me, she would quit using drugs, especially if child asked mother to quit using drugs and it didn't happen. Because as a child, we don't understand addiction. So we can carry the unworthiness or feeling not good enough into adulthood, internalizing negative comments and perceptions. So the negative, terrible, degrading, comparative, whatever things that were said in those moments of instability, we carry, and then it becomes part of the inner dialogue, our catalog of our inner dialogue. Um, Perfectionism to prove that you're good enough, always doing the right thing, the best things at all times. Everything is perfect, everything is right. Everybody will see that I am good enough. And then difficulty forming secure, healthy attachments because we're so used to a love relationship being unstable. Jay Cleveland said, "You're describing my mom." Shake my head. Man, a lot of us had issues with mother. And it's unfortunate that, we kind of live in a society that pedestalizes women and but especially mother. And so we can't have real conversations about the damage that can be done by mother. So here I am having the conversation. um, and I'll just, I don't always give a lot away about myself, but I did have issues with mother. Um, I and my mother's passed, but I loved my mother dearly, but a lot of challenges that had to be carried forward and processed from mother. And as an adult, I can understand the things that mother did, but the child side of me carried those problems forward. So those things had to be processed and dealt with. Unfortunate, again, you know, when mother does things, it's not our fault, but it becomes our responsibility. So, of all of those things, a person can struggle with a few or all of them. And there's also some overlap depending on, what happened in childhood. This is not a cut and dry thing, right? Because everybody's childhood is different. And there may be different points in time in childhood where maybe everything was great for a while, or, this was um, before stepdad came into the picture, or once stepdad was in the picture, everything became better. There's different periods that can be happening as well. So these issues um, usually come from unresolved issues with mom. And that's a lot of why um, therapists always ask about the relationship with mom. Like, it's kind of a trope, that the two things the therapists ever ask is, "How does that make you feel?" and "Tell me about your mother." But it's because of this, right? So, um, we have to take responsibility for the issues from mother, um, because we also know people who will use their mommy issues and expect other people to, like, move around them, like, "Well, my mom did this and my mom did that," and, they use it as an excuse for their poor behavior, you know? And that's really just unacceptable. So, I think it's just understanding that these things happened. Give yourself some grace. Don't buy into that perfectionism and that you got to fix it all, and you got to be perfect and you got to do this and that. Sometimes they just become quirks. It's just things to understand about yourself. Maybe I become codependent, or maybe I struggle to commit, and just bringing them into your conscious thought, you can address them right there in the moment, right? Um, Adrian Hicks says, "For those of us that this resonates with, how much of this comes from having parents that were in the me generation? Well, I think you can look at a lot of the things, the withdrawal, the removing of affection and emotional support, and the neglect all really happened to an entire Gen X generation. Because, we laugh about that Gen X is feral, but it was because for a lot of us, we were kicked out of the house early in the morning and told not to come back until the streetlights come on, or you are on fire or a bone is sticking out, and you were punished if you came back into the house, if you sought comfort for an injury, if you needed advice about how to handle a disagreement. Um, you were not welcome in the home. In fact, I know a lot of people whose the doors were locked while they were outside, and this started at a very young age. Um, and that's part of being raised by that me generation. They were very focused on what they wanted, where they wanted, how they wanted, and not so much about their children. They weren't going to let their children um yuck their yum or harsh their buzz. They um children were to be seen and not heard. Go out and do your thing, stay out of my hair, get out of my hair, stop your crying, because they didn't want to do the emotional labor of comforting. um I hope you find food out there on the street. We all drink from garden hoses, from being thirsty. And we all did some wild and crazy stuff, and a lot of us were in danger because nobody was checking for us until the streetlights came on, and we didn't make it home, you know. So I think just generationally, we automatically have some of that we then have to um, process. And I think that's how we ended up with kind of this participation trophy mentality of some Gen X parents, because now we're overdoing it with our kids. We're supportive of everything they do, and we get them all the things, and we're loving and hugging and kissing on them all the time, and so then our kids become enmeshed because we went too far the other way. We're that overly involved, overly protective, overly enmeshed parent who now our kids don't know how to be independent, because we've taken their independence from them because we let them have no moments of being feral and wild. So, every parent, every generation of parent tries to do the best they can with what they have to work with. And, even in those moments, um, those are things that are easily addressed. If we're removing independence, we can give them independence. Easily done. Um, oh, I missed some comments. Let me go up. Um, Spainman says, I'm sure I have some unidentified challenge based on my mom, but I'd say I was pretty fortunate considering what I hear and see from others. Yeah. And the thing is that there's a little bit of prediction you can do on resilience, but sometimes it's just kind of lucky that whatever behavior happened with mom happened when it happened, how it happened, or you had a really good support system and other people maybe didn't. Or there's even a part about resilience where if you had allergies as a child, or you were sick and mom did a certain thing, it reduced your resilience to be able to handle that. So there's so much that goes into what are the challenges moving forward and how difficult are they. Jay Cleveland says no such thing as perfect. Yeah, I totally agree. Spainman says, but her mom was a raging alcoholic, and my mom started going to Al-Anon meetings and always told me I needed to as well, just for things passed down. Yeah. Leon's laughing at locking the doors behind the kids. Yeah. I do know some kids, we didn't go to their house if there was an emergency or we were just starving. I always say, for a long time I didn't eat carrots because um, in the neighborhood, a lot of the families had gardens in their backyards, and we would be so hungry, we would just go pull carrots for something to eat. Wash them off with the garden hose, eat a carrot. I got so sick of carrots. Rocky said, I had a question about your poor people's sex life Sunday, but I couldn't stomach listening because I was wondering how tantric sex worked with circumcised men. Okay, now I'm really done. Okay. Well, there's a part 2 to that one coming up. It's called the SES of SEX. And so you can ask your question then. Jay Cleveland said, left my window unlocked. Yeah, she could sneak in, right? Get something to eat. I mean, how many of us kids went to the bathroom outside, right? Spain Man says, stepdad would have locked the doors, not mom. And Spain Man says, the son spoiled rotten. Yeah. And also says, sometimes I think this dude probably thought we were rich at some point. Right. Like, because you're always going to make it happen for your kids, right? Because our parents were so absent, and that was their style. That was just the me generation. That's what was expected. They probably degraded each other for any parent who actually wanted to hang out with their kids. These were the parents that the 10 o'clock news had to remind them that they had kids to check on, and remind them to hug their children. Have you hugged your child today? Did you get your one mandatory hug in of your child? Leon says, my mother allowed me to be free. Sometimes I wish it was reversed by keeping my head in the books, but she's more of a free range parent, be back home on time and don't get in trouble. Leon says, oh yeah, I'm waiting for part 2. Yes, I'm going to go deeper. Leon says, Maggie, don't ask the question about going to the bathroom outside to us brothers. I'm very sure we all got some stories, especially while it was snowy. I'm sure lots of little boys, especially Gen X boys, have lots of stories about peeing outside. It's much easier for the boys. I do know some little girls who had to. Again, the doors were locked, but I didn't get too much gaff for going inside to go to the restroom. And I did. I would not potty outside. That's nope. So, like I said, the good news is once you see the patterns, you can do something about it, but healing these kind of things, addressing these things, it can be painful because, now we're thinking about mother and the stuff mother did, and it takes time, so be kind to yourself, give yourself that nurturing and unconditional love, to heal the things that happened with mother, and it'll be worth it. It'll definitely be worth it. Jay Cleveland Green says, when the water was turned out, mom used to tell me to get water from the neighbors, but I would fight the kids at school the next day making fun of us. Oh, mom would say, don't open the door for anyone. Yeah, Jay Cleveland says, I went outside to use the bathroom outside. Yeah, definitely. Okay. So, as with all Pivot Point Wednesdays, we're going to have an after party on Patreon. This is for all members. So this is the free membership all the way through the paid memberships. So for all patrons on my Patreon, we're going to have an after party. Yeah, the link is already good. So just give me a few minutes to get over there and get set up. So if you don't have a Patreon membership and you want to get a free membership, again, it's free. You can go to my Patreon, get your free membership set up. When you're over there, because I didn't explain this before and messed up a few people, when you get over there, there'll be a post from me. And for this one, it'll say like mommy issues after show or something like that. and there'll be a YouTube link. It's an unlisted YouTube link, so the only way to get the YouTube link is on the Patreon. So you'd click the YouTube link, it'll open up YouTube to the after show. So I never explained that before and I messed some people up, so I'm sorry to those people. Um, Rocky said, "It's hard not to be hard on myself. I feel like I missed out on developmental milestones. The good thing is you can catch up." Okay. Peace to you, Adric, as well. Yeah, Spain Man says I was always behind compared to my friends. And Leon said, I would ask my stepdad for $20 and he would give it to me to get me out of the house. Goodness. Okay, so for those of you who are going to Patreon, I will see you in a few minutes. For others, we have upcoming the the femininity is essential, critical for salvation. So that show is coming up on, I believe it's on Sunday. I already put my notes away. And it's going to be long and it's going to be extraordinarily detailed. And it's going to be, I think, something everybody needs to hear. And there's going to be a little bit of masculine talk, but we're really going to dig into what is the feminine and the feminine nature and how it's essential for salvation. So, and then also, like I said, we have a part 2 of the Maslow's and sex that will be coming up called the SES of SEX. So hopefully I'll see you guys on those shows. But in the meantime, I'm going to show you a picture of my dog. Please like the video if you haven't already. It really helps the algorithm to know what kind of things you like. Share where you think it's appropriate, especially to someone who you think needs to hear it. And don't forget to check out some of the wilder Pivot Point Wednesday shows. And last, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, especially if you want to break down complex concepts that make the esoteric not so teric, helping you on your journey to become your most authentic self. By subscribing, you'll join a community that thrives on curiosity and growth, and you'll never miss out on insights and some wild discussions. Let's uncover the universe together. Bye.